The shadow at the foot of the bed. By the time she realized the shadow wasn't just a trick of the light, it was too late to run. The first glimpse. Emma had always been a light sleeper. The slightest noise, the creak of the house settling, the wind whispering against the windows, was enough to stir her awake. But lately it wasn't sounds that woke her. It was the feeling. A deep, suffocating sensation of being watched. It started subtly. She would wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, with the distinct sensation that someone was in the room. She would scan the darkness, waiting for her vision to adjust, but there was never anything there. At least, that's what she told herself. One night, however, things changed. Emma had been exhausted from a long day at work. She fell asleep almost instantly, but something pulled her out of her dreams. A presence. Her breath caught in her throat as she forced her heavy eyelids open, and then she saw it. A dark figure stood at the foot of her bed. The silent watcher. Her body locked in place, her limbs frozen as if she were paralyzed. The shadowy figure didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It simply stood there, an outline darker than the surrounding night, watching her. Emma wanted to scream, but her throat was dry, her voice trapped inside her chest. She tried to convince herself it was her imagination, a trick of the dim lighting. But she knew, deep down she knew, it was real. She forced herself to blink. In that split second, the figure disappeared. She didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, she dismissed the experience as a nightmare, a figment of her exhausted mind. But as the nights passed, the figure returned. Sometimes it was at the foot of the bed. Other times it stood in the corner, barely visible. And each time it felt closer than before. Unraveling the mystery. Determined not to let paranoia consume her, Emma started researching sleep paralysis, hoping for a rational explanation. But the stories she read only terrified her more. People described the same figure, dark, featureless, looming at their bedside. And then she found something worse. In a forum buried deep in a thread about supernatural encounters, she read about something called the Watcher. People all over the world had seen it, always at the foot of their beds, always watching, and those who saw it didn't always wake up. Emma slammed her laptop shut. It was just superstition. It had to be. But that night, the figure returned. It moves. This time, it wasn't standing still. Emma woke to the same oppressive sensation, her heart hammering against her ribs. She didn't want to look. She knew it would be there. Summoning her courage, she forced her eyes open. The shadow was there, only now it wasn't standing at the foot of the bed. It was closer. Her breath hitched. The shape was moving toward her, inch by inch, its form shifting as if it were made of smoke. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. Emma turned on every light in her room. She didn't sleep. She didn't even blink. The footsteps over the next few nights, Emma avoided sleep altogether. But exhaustion had a way of winning. One night, as she lay curled beneath her blankets, her body finally gave in to fatigue. But before she could slip into unconsciousness, she heard it. Footsteps, soft at first, then growing louder. They were slow, deliberate, and they were inside her room. She squeezed her eyes shut, her body trembling. The footsteps stopped beside her bed, and then she felt something breathe against her ear. Emma! She bolted upright, gasping for air. The room was empty. But the feeling remained, the undeniable, horrifying certainty that she was not alone. The history shaken, Emma decided she needed answers. She started researching her apartment building, hoping to find something, anything, that could explain what was happening. What she found made her blood run cold. Decades ago, a man had lived in her unit. He had been a recluse, rarely seen by his neighbors. One night he was found dead in his bed. The cause of death was never determined. The only strange detail, his eyes had been wide open, as if he had died staring at something unseen. Emma felt sick. That night, she decided to leave her apartment. She packed a bag, ready to stay at a friend's place. But as she reached for the doorknob, she felt it again. The presence. Her breath came in short gasps as she turned slowly. The shadow stood directly behind her. The final night, Emma didn't remember collapsing, but when she woke up, she was in her bed. The room was pitch black. Her body refused to move. The air was thick, suffocating. And then she saw it. The shadow was standing over her, not at the foot of the bed, not in the corner, right above her. She wanted to scream, to run, but she could do nothing as it leaned closer, its faceless form only inches away. And then, in a voice that rattled her bones, it whispered, "You can't leave Escape." Emma never remembered falling asleep, but when she woke up, it was morning. The sunlight streamed through the window, chasing away the darkness. Had it all been a nightmare? She didn't stay to find out. Within hours, she was out of the apartment, staying with a friend. She didn't tell them everything, just that she had a bad feeling about the place. That night, for the first time in weeks, she slept peacefully. No shadows, no voices. But then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., her phone vibrated on the nightstand. A text from an unknown number. It contained only 2 words: "Turn around." She didn't, she couldn't, because she already knew what she would see. Did Emma truly escape? Or did the shadow follow her? Some things never let go.